SBC Media.
Welcome to the iGaming Daily podcast, analysing the news from the betting and gaming industry all over the globe, supported by Optimove, the #1 CRM marketing solution for the iGaming market.
Hello and welcome to today's edition of iGaming Daily, during which we'll be talking about all things Sweden and Belgium. I'm Martyn Elliott, Media Director for SBC Media, and because I've mistakenly allowed Fernando and Charlie to have time off at the same time, I've got to stand in as host today. And I'm delighted to be joined, though, by some experts on the European gambling industry. Ted Orme-Claye, editor of SBC News. Hi, Ted. How are you?
Hello. I'm very good. Thank you, Martyn. And thank you for giving the listeners a dive into the perils of people management.
Yes, the many, many perils of people management, we should say. And also joining us today, Viktor, senior journalist with SBC News and Lottery Daily.
Yeah, hi guys. I've been... this is my first time on a podcast since some time now. I think it was a few months. I was away. A lot of things happened while I was away, but I'm happy to be back. And what more can I ask than to be back on my first episode with you two guys? So yeah, thanks for having me today.
Thanks. Perhaps I should point out this at this juncture, Viktor, that I do not get to decide on your pay rise, but thanks for the tribute anyway. So.
All right, I get it. I take it all back.
Okay, and obviously, as always, iGaming Daily is supported by Optimove, the creator of positionless marketing and the #1 player engagement platform. If you're heading to SBC Summit in Lisbon, and I'm sure you all are, mention iGaming Daily when you visit Optimove at stand A555 and get your first month for free. So, Ted, let's start with Sweden and what's happening there. There's been a couple of developments this week. So, what can you tell us about what's been happening there?
Yeah, as you say, Martyn, there's been a couple of developments. Two key developments are both linked to each other, really. The first of these was the revelations about the channelization rate there, and the second of these was a campaign announced by the Swedish regulator focusing on young people and over-indebtedness among young people as a result of gambling, I believe. A lot of this then relates back to the channelization rate, because I think the main thing that the Swedish regulators and government are concerned about is the number of Swedish people, and particularly young people, who are often more given a higher marker of risk of gambling harm, often aren't as financially stable as people who've been around the block a bit longer, I guess. They're at risk of getting into debt, losing more significant sums of money. And the way this relates to the channelization is that they're concerned that these people are going to offshore companies that continue to target Sweden in the many years since it re-regulated the market back in 2019.
Yeah, and Viktor, channelization has been the big talking point in Sweden since that re-regulation in 6 years ago now, and they've struggled, I think it's fair to say. Why is it they can't hit that 90% rate that was set for the industry back at when the new legislation was introduced?
There's a list of reasons why they're still struggling to hit these self-imposed targets, essentially. But it's also important to note that the key issue here is quite clearly segmented. It's channelization referring only to online casinos. And from my point of view, the total market channelization is moving in a quite good direction, because the most recent data that the regulator released is that the total market channelization was capped at 86%, which I think is a great statistic to have. Moving though to the online to the iGaming channelization rates, estimates are that it's between 72% and 82%, which is obviously a huge drop from the market average. There are a list of reasons why that is, and why it's still far away from the 90% cap. Some of the reasons include, obviously, like you pointed out, the online market was really re-regulated back in 2019, and with that, a lot of reforms accompanied it. Bonuses, for example, are quite a large part from that re-regulations. Bonuses were allowed only upon sign-up, and they were all capped at 100 Swedish krona, which is around £8 per customer. So each customer could only get those £8 only per sign up, which, obviously it's not gonna be appealing to a lot of customers. Another reason is that certain customer checks were imposed as well when players went over specific session and spend thresholds, which can also seem unappealing to the average player. There is also we've also seen quite a large migration towards the black market for a variety of reasons. The regulator has stated out that circling back to bonuses, the regulator has, when asked why players are moving to the black market, 21% of them responded that there are more bonus offers there, better chances of winning, which is really speculative. And of course, they can play on the black market when players have been blocked on the Spelpaus, which is Sweden's self-exclusion system. All of these things in a combination really lead to the market struggling to reach that 90% cap. Which again is just the average market channelization is it's 86, and the only problem really is the iGaming channelization between 72% and 82%.
Yeah, I mean, it seems a bit like the regulation is very well intended in Sweden, but they haven't thought about the secondary consequences of some of these rules. I mean, it seems like not allowing massive sign-up bonuses and bonuses in play and things like that, quite sensible in terms of responsible gambling measures.
Player protection as well.
But the reality is, in an online world, you can just go somewhere else and play, can't you?
Yeah.
And there's a really strange anomaly in the regulation in Sweden, which I hadn't realised was there until a guy famous for tax avoidance and a guy who was famous as a gambling addict in Sweden got together and launched their own crypto casino.
That sounds like the start of a joke.
Like yeah, well, I mean, shouldn't be funny. And they launched this without a license. And when interviewed by one of the national newspapers, they said, "We don't need a license. The law says we don't need a license."
There you go.
And they went and checked with the regulator. And the regulator said, "Well, technically, they are right. You can run this casino, but what you can't do is advertise the casino."
Mm-hmm.
So, how do you clamp down on that if it's advertised on a social media posting, which they might have made in a different country?
Yeah, there's, like you say, it's the complexities of the online world, of the digital world, as well as the fact that this industry is now multinational. And you have various companies active under international licenses that often will come at odds with local national ones. Yeah. I think as well, it's just it's one of the things that I think a lot of countries have to contend with when they move away from a very tightly regulated sector to a more multi-market one. And you've got to realise when you do that how many different factors there are at play, especially, like we say, Martyn, in this modern world where everything is so much more digital, and when you can access websites that are based in one country and active in another and licensed in another and offer different payment methods and market themselves in various different ways, it's no longer the age of betting, high street betting shops and a casino in a city centre, is it? There's so many different factors. And Sweden obviously moved away from what was initially a very long-held monopoly that was in place for decades to now, a more multi-licensed one. And it seems that there's one or two things that have slipped through the cracks during that 2019 re-regulation that continue to linger and cause a couple of problems. With chiefly being, obviously, with Viktor's mentioned a lot of the channelization rates looking pretty good for online betting. They're close to achieving their targets there. In some cases are above achieving the target. But iGaming is the big one that stands out. And that's really probably the trickiest one, because online casino, slots, things like that are the ones that have the more potential for like harmful gambling, problem gambling. They're the ones that often have some more public relations issues, I guess we could say, because of this. They're often a bit more politically sensitive. So that is the one really where you want the channelization rate to be well above target, I think, more so than the others.
Yeah, I think so. And then just finally on Sweden, for this first part of the show, Parliament is set to review the sort of current protections and liabilities in the gambling regulation. Viktor, do you expect to see any changes brought into the legislation? Any recommendations?
Of course, there's surely going to be a move towards imposing stricter rules to fight unlicensed operators. This could mean everything from larger penalties to wider cross-collaboration between industry and government. I'm even expecting more powers for the regulator, Spelinspektionen, similar to what we've witnessed in the Netherlands. Policymakers could also review the current bonus regulations, like we've discussed earlier, and they would definitely want to check, I think, the current advertising landscape, because from yesterday, 1st of September, new rules just came in that, restricted gambling advertisements even more, especially those who are targeting younger audiences. And this goes back to the lower channelization rates, where more younger audiences actually go on unlicensed websites. So they will want to capture that younger audience, bring it back to the regulated market. So I think we would see discussions on relaxing advertising regulations as well.
Yeah, I mean it's interesting, isn't it? Every time we talk about governments getting involved in changing gambling regulation, we always talk about they're going to make it tighter. The restrictions it's going to be a clampdown. It's always the language, where surely the lessons of Sweden and Germany, and to an extent the Netherlands, is if your regulation is too tight, is too restrictive, it's counterproductive. But we'll see. I'm not expecting the famously liberal Swedish people to actually take a liberal stance on this when it's discussed.
No, it's not going to be a miracle, obviously, but the data is there, the statistics are there. What works and what doesn't is clearly evident. So a review is definitely due.
I'd also just add before we move on to Belgium that I'm quite interested in seeing how closely Finland and the Finnish authorities, Finnish gambling stakeholders, will have been paying attention to things in Sweden, because obviously they're about to go through a very similar process with getting rid of, well, not getting rid of, because the Vikhaus, I've forgotten how you pronounce it. Apologies to any of our Finnish listeners. They will still be there, but they'll no longer have the monopoly over betting and gaming that they have had for many decades, similar to what used to be the case in Sweden. So I wonder if, the Finnish authorities are going to be looking at how the Swedish market has evolved since 2019 re-regulation and going, right, what gaps have we identified in their framework that we need to make sure aren't in ours when we move forward in 2026?
Yeah, well, that's one of the most exciting sort of developments in Europe in the next couple of years, coming the launch of the open Finnish market. So excellent. Well, let's take a short break, and when we come back, as we've already trailed, we're going to be talking about one of my favourite countries in the world.
SBC Leaders connects the gambling industry's top-tier operators and associations to share the best ideas, collaborate on solving the biggest issues, and push innovation throughout the betting and gaming industry. If you're an operator and want to join the discussion, visit sbcleaders.com for more information.
So, welcome back to part 2 of today's iGaming Daily, and we're now going to be talking about what I call the land of beer and chocolate, but the EU authorities insist we call it Belgium.
I was going to ask, why is it your favourite country in the world, Martyn? But yeah, you've answered that before. Yeah, before I even asked.
I should work for their tourist board. If they just promoted it as the land of beer and chocolate, everyone would want to go, right? Be the number one holiday destination.
I've been to Bruges before, and I definitely recommend a trip to Bruges. Lovely city, and very nice beer, very nice bars, and cathedrals and architecture and so on. Yeah, I wasn't there that long, so I never actually sampled any chocolate. I don't think, but I did eat in some nice cafes and restaurants. Had some mussels there that were very good.
Chips with mussels.
Yeah.
Very good.
So there's a lot of things to why people like Belgium.
Yeah, that's right. And unfortunately, I don't think the King's decree on the governance of gambling is among them.
Let's see.
So Ted, what can you tell us about this latest development in Belgium?
Well, what this essentially is, it's quite a simple development, really. They're just appointing the representatives of some different ministries who will play a role in overseeing gambling at the country's gambling commission. There's going to be representatives from the finance, justice, public health, economy, and interior ministries at the GC, which has and 2 representatives for the National Lottery as well, which will be under the finance minister. I think this is just quite an interesting development. Bit of news really, just in terms of, let's say, international comparisons. We make comparatives between the different European countries we tend to look at. This isn't really something that I come across as much, let's say, in the UK, where you actually have people from a different state department, Secretary of State, whatever, ministers and that, who will be assigned to go and work at the Commission and play a role in influencing policy and reporting back to the government on what's going on. And obviously, this also comes at quite a critical time for Belgium as well, which, like a lot of the other countries we mentioned earlier, is going through a bit of a regulatory tightening of its industry, particularly around advertising.
Yeah, super interesting that they've got the guys from the Public Health Ministry coming in. I mean, that's a big talking point in many nations at the minute. But also, I'm attracted to the idea that you have from the Ministry of Economy people there. Because one thing that gets overlooked in talks about the future of the gambling industry in many places is its contribution, its economic contribution, the jobs it creates, the taxes it pays, and so on there. So interesting, they've taken quite a holistic approach to that. It's got a lot to recommend it, that approach, in theory, but we'll see how it works out in practice.
Yeah, because you'd think, wouldn't you, that, this will be great, we'll have all these different people from different governments who have different government ministries who have their own objectives and own policies to achieve regarding different aspects of the national economy, national public health, sporting ecosystems, and so on. But obviously, a lot of these might not necessarily line up. Like you mentioned, public health. The people from the public health ministry will probably be chiefly concerned with, obviously, problem gambling, harm minimisation, as they should be. It's one of the most important things relating to this industry, certainly at government level, as well as industry responsibility, of course. But then the people from the economic side of things will, like you said, Martyn, be quite prioritise. I'd imagine would prioritise ensuring hefty tax returns, ensuring that people are employed, and things like that. They might even be, in the context of this ban on sports sponsorships that's come into effect in Belgium, like a complete ban, not like the one we're seeing in the UK. This is total, isn't it, I think? As well as quite a hefty clampdown on advertising. They might be looking at that and thinking, well, our sports club's going to be losing out on money, and what impact is that going to have on the wider economy? So there's a few things in here that have the potential to maybe conflict regarding government policy objectives.
Definitely. I mean, that's an interesting point you raise about the sports clubs and leagues losing out on much needed funding things. Every time we talk about restrictions on advertising, and particularly advertising bans that are called for pretty much everywhere, campaigners would like to see them. Nobody says, what's this effect? What is the effect of that going to be on publishers, for instance, newspaper and online publishers, who, get reasonable chunk of their revenue coming from gambling advertising? Same with broadcasters. It's not as simple as saying, we don't like gambling, we think gambling's a problem, let's clamp down on advertising. There's far more to consider than that. And I think in too many countries, that debate doesn't go deep enough. So interesting what we're seeing in Belgium. Let's have this decree, it's talked a lot about seeking to govern gambling in the sort of the interests of public protection. Do you think, Viktor, we'll see, as a result of these changes, any laws changing?
Not exactly. I don't believe that. We're going to see existing laws being changed, or at least I should say I don't see existing laws being overhauled, because Belgium has quite an extensive list of strict regulations when it comes to the protection of the public. For example, Belgium and Greece are the only countries in Europe that currently have the minimum gambling age at 21 for all forms of gambling. There's no free bets and bonuses allowed as well. Like Ted said, there's a blanket ban on gambling sponsorship in sports. So I don't think any the laws that currently exist are only going to be built upon. And but regardless what happens in the future, I think that this is a hugely positive development for Belgium, because we have a list of proven experts that are going to be there for 6 years. This is how much their mandate will last, and the market is not going to go anywhere. And they're going to come together and refine it. I think that's I'm going to be the optimist here. I think having people from so many different ministries focusing on different strategies is actually a good thing. And while they might their views might be conflicting somewhere, I'm sure that it's just going to benefit the market further.
Yeah, I think if their views are conflicting, that is a good thing. You don't solve anything by everyone sitting there and politely agreeing with each other. You need to get those tensions out in the open and thoroughly discussed. So
exactly.
Yeah, which I'd say, to be fair, it's something that isn't really happening in the UK at the moment in the tax debate, I don't think, is it?
Not at all. There's I was going to make a joke that the minor party that is the Conservative Party, one or two of them have spoken out against it, but not many. It appears to be that in the UK, we're heading down the road of having quite a big tax increase that is not particularly well thought through. I think is what we can expect in, when's the budget? End of October, something?
Yeah, October, possibly November. Yeah,
when the new Chief Secretary of the Treasury was appointed yesterday, has done his sums.
Yeah.
So just one final point on Belgium then before we wrap things up for today. Do you think this is as we've said, is completely an approach we haven't really seen before, this new sort of commission, the new people appointed to the regulator or to advise the regulator? Do you think this is proof that regulators can actually change direction?
Yeah, I'd say so. If it's happening in Belgium, I don't see why it couldn't happen anywhere else. But I don't know. This is a tricky one, isn't it? Like I say, if it's happened somewhere, in theory, it should be able to happen in other countries. Whether or not it will is a completely different matter, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess so. What do you think, Viktor?
I think each market has its own intricacies, and maybe the model cannot be copied elsewhere. I say let's wait and see how it develops in Belgium, and then if it works out, other markets can take note of that as well.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting, isn't it? It can go two ways, though, can't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess also there's the potential problem that if governments are going to have a lot more representation on regulators. Governments obviously can change, like election. Let's say in the UK, an election has to happen every 5 years. Often they happen much sooner than that. With new governments, you've got new mandates, you've got new policies, and that could not be particularly good for industry stability, potentially.
Yeah. Well, that's right. And in Belgium, of course, they famously take quite a long time to form a government.
Yeah, many countries in Europe have coalition governments all the time, don't they? So that's then adding further potential clashes of opinions, conflicts of interest, and so on. Yeah,
I mean, I think we often forget that sitting here in the UK, where you have an election, then the next day the government changes. That it's not like that in many countries at all. And Belgium is a particularly poor example of getting things done quickly when it comes to changing governments. So right. Well, I think we're out of time for today. So Viktor, Ted, thanks for joining me today, and thank you all for listening. And join us again tomorrow for another edition of iGaming Daily.
Thank you for listening to today's iGaming Daily podcast, supported by Optimove, the #1 CRM marketing solution for the iGaming market. If you want to find out more about some of the subjects raised today, feel free to explore any of the sites in the SBC News network, or check out the latest edition of the SBC Leaders magazine. Happy reading.